Cameroon, Cameroon has one seat in the UN. Cameroon has one seat in the African Union. Cameroon has one seat in CEMAC. In all of these international organizations, if you could give me one example of a symbol of nationhood, if you could give me one nation that has recognized or even is moving towards recognizing two states within that geography, if you can give me one,
well,
Chris,
all right.
in 3 years,
Let me take that. Let me say
getting to
this.
4, we
Until
still have not been able to do that.
Until
I'm
the
sorry?
Southern Sudan became an independent nation, the Sudan had only one seat at the UN, one seat at the AU.
Let me say this: the United States fought. I have worked with Salva Kiir of South Sudan. I've sat at his table and had dinner with him and one other person through this whole South Sudan. Do you know, Chris, that John Garang, who was leader of South Sudan, the mythical leader of South Sudan, did not want the separation of his country? Do you know why that country was separated? Because America supported them. America supported them because the evangelical movement in America said, couched the crisis in that country around religion, and the American.
How about Senegambia?
The American.
How about Senegambia separating from Senegal? How about Eritrea separating from Ethiopia?
Yes. Okay. Let me. You've asked 3. Let me explain the 3, so that the constant half truths that continue to fuel the crisis in Cameroon can at least be put in perspective by a lot of young people who don't know the truth about the full story. Let's take each one. Sudan. The Sudanese, the Americans were the ones who provided the support that took South Sudan out of the Greater Sudan over religious grounds. It was not the Sudanese. They had the major support of America from the get-go. So let's put the Sudan story. It does not reflect.
If you take that premise, if you take that route, I will ask you, for how long did the Southern Sudanese have to fight to get their independence? Now, I ask a question because if you claim that the Southern Sudanese got their independence because they had a supporter, they had to fight for over 20 years.
Okay, I mean, I wish I could give you an answer that would satisfy you, but the fact is, we don't have a single country backing separation in Cameroon, as we had France back Biafra, as we had the United States back South Sudan. This is absolute historical truth.
But the point I'm saying is, we have only been in this for 3 years, and the countries you are naming were in there for over 20 years. Why don't you see this intervention by the international community in the negotiation as an intervention of America?
Yeah, Biafra fought for 3 years, 1 million people died, and Biafra had the support of France, not America, and it ultimately could not sustain the war. We've not had one country even back us. South Sudan had the Americans backing it.
I won't accept that. To say we don't have a country that backs up, you are very much aware of the Swiss initiative. They have within 3 years. Within 3 years, government. We are coming to weigh into this crisis. The international community has come in to say we are weighing into this crisis. The Americans, the UN have said the dialogue that took place in Yaoundé was no dialogue. You got to go back to the root causes. Why are you not considering all this?
Yes, I'm considering everything and telling you that the Swiss government that you're talking about is not in support of splitting Cameroon.
So how did you know that? Maybe you are an insider. How did you know that?
A Swiss NGO has offered its services to mediate, and the government said, we need a mediator. If the Cameroonians and if the conflicting parties in Cameroon agree, then you can go ahead as a mediator. The
Swiss NGO, the bills for the Swiss NGO are being footed by the Canadians. I'm sure you are aware of this. And you know, these people will not put down a dime if there were no prospect for a settlement. If there were no prospect for a settlement. So it is not about some NGO coming in between.
Everybody hopes, everybody sees the prospects of a settlement of a Cameroon within Cameroon,
of course,
the boundary.
Every crisis ends or conflict ends in a settlement, and that's a chance, the opportunity I want you to give this Southern Cameroon conflict. You are not saying it. You are just quoting, "Oh, America is not there. The French are not there."
I want to. If you tell me anything that will move us towards a resolution, I'll be more than willing to take it. If we can even get this nation and the community of nations to propose something that's workable, I will be the first to jump at it.
But that is what we are talking about the presence of the international community through the Swiss initiative. That's what we are looking. That's what we are looking for. So, but anyways, let's see if we can get to the phones. And
the United Nations that held Cameroon as a trust territory, unfortunately, decided on how it was going to grant these trust territories independence. And that was done by the United Nations in 1961. The votings and the pattern of voting and the views expressed did not create a nation. That nation was created in 1961 on the 1st of October after a referendum in which the decision was made. We could have rejected that referendum. We could have rejected the process that was agreed to. So do not talk about intellectual dishonesty. You, my friend, and all those who've convinced you are people who are intellectually dishonest. Let's, and then with regard to me leaving CRTV in disgruntlement, no, far from the fact. I did not leave CRTV a disgruntled person. A nation was built in 1961 with full diplomatic rights, with a flag, with an anthem, all the accoutrements of a nation, all the symbols of nationhood were available to this new country on the 1st of October 1960. They were available. I'm not making this up. History is there to prove it.
I agree with you.
But through the years, there have been ups and downs, tensions and crises of all natures, but the essential arrangements of 1961 are still in place. They're still in place. The UN recognizes that. The African Union recognizes that. All the nations of the world with which this country has diplomatic relations, they all recognize that.
The African Union Constitutive Act recognizes French Cameroon and Southern Cameroons as two separate states with two separate boundaries. You may want to check that out. That's what the
I won't let you get away with historical lies.
But then you also have to realize, Eric, that yes, something took place in 1961.
What you're saying is
October 1961. The UN
it's
process.
It's a historical untruth.
The UN process.
And with regard to La République du Cameroun, they have territorial boundaries that were recognized in 1960, in January 1960. You're totally right about that. United Nations, which had the other part of Cameroon as a trust territory, decided how it was going to liberate that part of Cameroon, or the two parts, southern Cameroons and northern
That
Cameroons.
other part, the southern Cameroons also had its own boundaries, correct? Its own international recognized boundaries.
Yes, they had boundaries as trust territories until October 1961, correct, when one part of it went to Nigeria as what was then the Adamawa province, and the other part went to Cameroon. These were UN territories. The UN did not create a seat for the trust territory that Cameroon was in 1961. It created one seat in October of 1961 for a state.
That All right. Let's take the next caller, please. Let's take the next caller. Hello.
He asked about the special status, and I'm hoping, I'm hoping that this special status will give us a level of autonomy we've not had since 1961.
All right.
He first of all started by refusing that he is not a Southern Cameroonian. I have this question to ask him. From the date of independence of La République du Cameroun, 1st January 1960, was Santa part of La République du Cameroun in that date of independence? Second question, by 20th of September 1960, when La République was admitted at the United Nations, was West Cameroon, or let me say, as they call it, Northwest and Southwest, part of that admission at the United Nations? And by that particular time, does he believe that at that time there was a government in the then former West Cameroon with the Prime Minister, John Foncha? Does he accept that? And why is he accepting that he doesn't belong to Southern Cameroon and he is from Santa?
Eric, it's your turn to answer the question, please.
Yes, again, you know,
thanks for calling.
Yes, and I thank our friend. Was Santa a part of La République in 1960? Absolutely not. Santa was part of a trust territory that was governed from Nigeria. And that changed in 1961 in a referendum organized by the United Nations. We may not have, if we had a choice, would have had that referendum seek a third way. But the referendum gave us two options. Do you want to belong to Nigeria, or do you want to belong to La République? Do you want to reunite with La République du Cameroun? So Santa was not a part of La République du Cameroun.
And Santa was part of the Southern Cameroons, of course, right?
Yes, and Santa was part of the Southern Cameroons that became
So
West
he is
Cameroon.
Asking, why don't you consider yourself a Southern Cameroonian?
You know, why don't I consider myself a Cameroonian with a K?
A Southern, a Southern Cameroonian.
No, if you want to go back into the history of colonialism, then I might as well consider myself a Cameroon, K-A-M-E.
Nothing wrong with that. That is the way we were called by the Germans. You know, it's still the same territory.
Yes. If that's what we're talking about, yes, I was a Cameroonian, K-A-M-E-R-U-N. I was a Southern Cameroonian, and I was a West Cameroonian, and today I'm a Cameroonian. I mean, that's the history.
If I may ask, why do you try so hard to avoid identifying yourself as a Southern Cameroonian? I realize you would rather say you are Anglophone Cameroonian than say you are a Southern Cameroonian or Ambazonian. Why is it so hard for you to come to those terms?
It's not hard, Chris. I've just told you. I am all of those things. And even before Cameroon of the Germans became Cameroon of the Germans, my ancestry is in that soil. What I'm revendicating here, what I'm claiming here, is my belonging to that part of that geography that today is called Cameroon by all institutions that recognize nations.
All right. Let's take the last caller.
The Biafran War was resolved in Nigeria because it was about Nigeria. The Cameroonian crisis should be resolved in Cameroon because it's a Cameroonian crisis. But let me say this: